All right, guys, we have got our Week 8 recap of the NFL, and I'm just going to walk through each game for a little bit and talk about how I kind of viewed the game and what happened and everything like that, just to get a sense of how I view games and everything like that. And we'll be doing this every week till the end of the season here, and it's a bit better than, just typing out a couple notes on Instagram or whatever it may be. Easier to talk this way. So we can just jump right on into it. Minnesota at Los Angeles at the Rams. Rams win that game 30-20. Couple things here. Rams obviously get their weapons back. Kupp, Nacua came back. Nacua popped right in. Hadn't practiced all year. Hadn't done anything all year and kind of just showed up, and it was like he never left. He looked good. Kupp looked okay. This offense in general is kind of built to beat this blitz-heavy, kind of weird formation Minnesota defense that Flores type likes to run here. So it's kind of like a perfect fit in terms of offense to defense, this Rams team. A lot of short passes, a lot of quick screens, variety of different things there. So you don't really get time to go after Stafford, who's not super mobile or anything like that. And if you're Minnesota, and Minnesota kind of thrives on you making mistakes, having a play or two where you're sitting back there too long or anything like that, turnovers. So just a really bad offense to kind of go up against. In terms of this defense for Minnesota, there are a couple cracks starting to show a little bit. We are 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks in, obviously, here. And it started out really well, but last couple of weeks, you kind of get the sense that teams have found a couple of different spots to attack this Minnesota defense, and I'm not sure if it's going to end up elite at the end of the year. Should be top 10 still. Obviously, the schedule is not super difficult either. But, there are a couple more cracks starting to show. Teams figuring it out just a little bit, probably watching a little bit of tape and seeing some cracks. So a little bit of worry there. Minnesota offensively, script plays look great. First couple drives looked excellent. Then after that, it really fell off a little bit. They lose Darisaw right before halftime, and you see what happens to Darnold when there's pressure. They do go out and get the left tackle for the Jags, Robinson, which is about as good as you're going to get, considering how everything's gone along and where we are in the season and stuff like that. So they did well to go ahead and bring him in, and hopefully he can play well. But you see what happens to Darnold when the pockets aren't clean all the time, when receivers have tight coverage and players are kind of getting back there. It just kind of goes back to the old Darnold. Sam Darnold, despite being in this offense and despite playing pretty well, is still got his issues, and there's reasons why he was a free agent and wandering around and looking for a home over the offseason. And they start to show when things aren't exactly perfect. Now, obviously, Minnesota are going to try and keep him upright and do what they can, but my issue for Minnesota is that cracks are starting to show in a couple of places, and we'll see going forward. Their schedule for the rest of the year is pretty easy, comparatively, so you may not see a ton. This may be one of those things where they go in, 10, 11, 12 wins on the back of a pretty easy schedule at the back end, and then get to a playoff game and kind of get trounced out of nowhere. That's kind of what this feels like to me right now. But again, still a very good football team, and but we're kind of just looking for little things here and there, and there are a couple things showing up on Minnesota. As for the Rams, I'm still not in love with the defense, though the rookies have come in and done well on the defensive line. Jared Verse, been the best pass rusher in the draft so far. And they're playing decently well, and if the offense is playing well, then they'll be in most games. So, yeah, interesting game, a fun one, good one for Thursday night. Next, we have Philadelphia at Cincinnati. Eagles win this game 37-17. This was really interesting, super dominant from Philadelphia in the second half. Bengals get to the third quarter here, score that touchdown, make it 17-17, and then that was it. It's kind of just turnovers pretty much for the rest of the game, and their defense is definitely not good enough to handle games where the offense isn't putting up really good numbers, and it's been that way for a little bit. They had that okay game against the Giants, and that's kind of been it. Another bad game here. I mean, Eagles had touchdown drives of 70, 85, 56. A couple other field goal drives of 56 and 52, I think. 0 turnovers. Unless the offense is perfect, you're not going to win games like that. So Bengals have to play really good on defense. I don't know if the playoff push is kind of dead, getting there. Another loss or two and it's kind of dead. So we'll see. With the Bengals, they still move the ball okay, but they can't run the ball at all. And when teams can just sit back, this is kind of what happens. It's as simple as that. We were talking about the Philly offense too. It looked good. When they don't turn the ball over, they're tough to beat, period. They have so many weird little advantages, like the tush push and stuff like that. So you have to either cause Hurts problems, which the Bengals didn't in this game. You have to stop the running game. You have to stop something, and the Bengals didn't really do any of that today. A.J. Brown is such a difference maker. He's the most important player on the offense for sure. And when he's healthy, they're really difficult to beat. So right now I have Philly. I think they're my 7th ranked team right now. They're an interesting rank because they kind of strike me as similar to Kansas City, where things don't look great, but they continue to put up good numbers and continue to win football games, and it's as simple as that for them. Baltimore, Cleveland. Cleveland win this game 29-24. This is such a weird game. Watching it back, this felt like an anomaly of a result here. Like, this felt like best case scenario for Cleveland. You get all the good with Jameis Winston. You get none of the bad because Baltimore can't catch anything. I mean, I don't know how Kyle Hamilton dropped that ball that would have won them the game at the end there. No idea. They had 2 or 3 or 4 dropped picks, 2 or 3 or 4 dropped really bad passes on offense as well. So I know this reads as a Cleveland win. The offense moved okay, as I said, but if anybody on Baltimore could catch, they probably win this game. So it's an interesting one. Jameis Winston, he's definitely an upgrade on Deshaun, but he's that guy, man. 50 TDs, 50 interceptions kind of guy. As we said, he had 3 TDs this game. Probably should have had 3 picks and didn't. And that's probably going to be the difference between Cleveland winning games and losing games going forward. Are teams going to take their opportunities to turn Winston over, turn the Browns offense over? If they're not, defense is good enough to keep teams at bay a little bit, and they may score enough points on offense. So it's an interesting team, and it's probably just going to come down to turnover variance with Jameis Winston going forward. Very interesting. As for Baltimore, as I said, I didn't see anything I didn't already know with Baltimore. Didn't run the ball a ton today. Difficult to front to run on. Defense, as we said, it's got some cracks. It certainly has some cracks. It's not as good as it showed early. It's got some cracks, decent enough though. And as I said, if any of those dudes could catch, they win this football game. There's my cats over there sneezing away. So interesting game, that one. Tennessee at Detroit, another one. Lions win this game 52-14. This game was 14-14 at one stage. And then after that, Titans just couldn't do anything. It was just turnovers and special teams disasters, really. Lions got outgained here like 430-220, and nothing. The game was never close. It was just never close after that. Rudolph interception, I think it was, when it was 14-14, and then the Lions go up 21 there. They had 28 points, and Goff had like 26 pass yards or whatever. They ran the ball at will here. It was like 8 yards a carry at one stage. I don't know what Tennessee are, man. Tennessee are just waiting for the season to end, it feels like. Defense isn't any good. All that money they spent on these, decent free agents, Calvin Ridley, Snead has been awful. It's kind of all gone to waste behind a quarterback that's not any good in Levis, and the backup who's not that much better in Rudolph. So it's interesting. As for Detroit, not too much to learn. I thought there was some signal that you could move a little bit on them, move the ball a little bit, and I think going forward you're going to be able to move the ball a little bit on Detroit. Offensive line continues this kind of weird inconsistent streak. They look incredible sometimes, and then like during this Tennessee game they gave up 3-4 sacks on like 20 dropbacks. It's very weird, but it's just inconsistent at this point, and they're going to need to kind of shore that up and maybe shore up the defense a little bit, maybe find an edge rusher, but nothing crazy. This is probably the number 1 or number 2 power ranked team in the country or in the league right now. Next game, Arizona at Miami. Cardinals win this one 28-27. This was an interesting one. Dolphins led by 10, like a majority of the game. They led by 10 in the third quarter, led by 9 in the fourth. Were up 10-0 early, but didn't really put anything away. Game never fell over. Miami defense is still a problem. Kyler Murray played his best game all year. He's quietly had a pretty crappy year, but had a good day today. As we said with Miami, they had plenty of chances. I'm not sure what's exactly going on with Miami. Is the play calling or kind of just something weird is off when you watch the offense? Obviously, Tua was back for the first time since his concussion. He looked fine, nothing crazy, but it's just little things, 3rd and 2s, and kind of weird play calls there, and just weird decision making here and there that costs some games and continues to cost them games. Cost them a Colts game, I thought. Cost them today as well. But yeah, very interesting. The defense, it has problems, has injuries as well. Obviously, Holland, Phillips and stuff like that has injuries, but it's still not playing very well. And the reality is it needs to play a little bit better if Miami are going to make a playoff push. Whether that's possible now, not sure. AFC is kind of weird right now. So we'll see. As for Arizona, they kind of keep themselves around in the NFC West. Everybody in that division is kind of in the same spot. So they keep going. Their defense still not very good. And as we said, this is their first really good offensive game in a bit, as their Kyler's first really good game in a bit. So we'll see going forward what happens with these two teams. But interesting game, dead even pretty much. Jets at New England. New England win this one 25-22. The Jets are a football team that, I don't know. It's very strange. They seem to dominate games. I'm filming this at halftime of the Jets-Houston game, and the Jets dominated that first quarter too. They dominated this entire game against New England, and there's just weird things happening. Just weird, kind of things that just keep them from winning games. They can't get a stop on the last drive. Weird penalties. You get a bad throw from Rodgers that kind of turns everything around. Today, in the first quarter here that they dominated, Texans didn't move the ball at all. The guy just drops the ball before heading into the end zone. That would have put them 7-0 up. And next thing you know, they go into the half 7-0 down. It's a very, very weird football team because metrically things look good. I mean, today, as we said, New England under 250 yards. Everything, I forgot what the exact stat was. It was like no turnovers, 250 yards or less on defense. And then one other thing in there, and then New England won the football game. It was like the first team ever to do it out of like 750 tries or whatever. Crazy things happen with the Jets. They continue to be the Jets, and that makes them difficult from like a power rating if you're betting or anything like that to kind of place. Because when you watch, you're like, they're dominating the football game, and then weird things happen, and all of a sudden they lose the football game, and everything, I don't know, it's just weird. Drake May played okay in this game. He's got some nice traits for sure. Some growing to do, obviously. But his legs carry plenty of drives. This, wide receiver core is not great. He went out hurt in this game, and Brissett came in and won the game for them. I think it was a concussion. So he may be back next week or the week after, but May shows some nice traits and should continue, hopefully, throughout the rest of the year to grow a little bit because I think he has a decent future going forward. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Falcons win this one 31-26. Interesting one. Tampa Bay's defense is still really bad, and because they're missing Mike Evans, because they're missing Godwin, it takes a lot for them to win games. I mean, winning this game would have been a small miracle the way the defense plays. Baker played all right. He's still, not great in terms of a couple of things there. Decision-making still kind of off. That second interception, I think it was the second one where he kind of tried to loft it over the corner there. Every once in a while, he just has like a malfunction in his brain there and throws a bad pick or causes a bad turnover or ends a drive in a bad way. He's just not at that super elite level that can carry in a game like this. So it's difficult, especially because they're going to miss Godwin for the rest of the year, Mike Evans for a month and a half or so. This kind of felt like I don't want to say the end of the season for Tampa Bay, but this kind of felt like their best effort and still really couldn't get it done against a pretty flawed Falcons team. So we'll see going forward with Tampa Bay. As for Atlanta, the offense still takes advantage of bad defenses most of the time. Did so here. Defense still has holes, so there's not much to learn on Atlanta. This seems like it's going to be Atlanta for the rest of the year. Whether they can hold up going forward or not, I'm not sure. They're definitely in the driver's seat for the division now, but this feels like a fade team come playoff time, but we'll see. Green Bay at Jacksonville, 30-27 Green Bay as they walk it off with a field goal here. Another interesting one. This was kind of slow for a long time. Then Love got hurt. I believe it was 17-13 at that stage, Jacksonville. And then Malik Willis came in, and it's a different game plan. I like LaFleur, and he has different game plans for both his quarterbacks, and Jags didn't really seem ready for it on defense, and Willis has taken a step since last time we all saw him and played pretty well and won the game for them. Jaguars defensively not great. Green Bay defensively not great. And that feels like it's going to be Green Bay's... The defense feels like what is going to end Green Bay's season at one stage or another, whether it's in a playoff game or something like that. The defense has holes, like a decent amount of holes. And they're not quite fixed yet. And whether they can be fixed, I am not super sure. Jacksonville moved the ball pretty well today. But again, 27 points is decent, but their defense isn't any good either. Gave up a ton once again to Josh Jacobs. They've won 30 and 2 touchdowns again. As we said, Malik Willis scored 17 points on he had 4 or 5 drives total. So, not great. He even had the game-winning drive, of course, late at the end there to put him in field goal position to win the game. So interesting. Didn't learn a lot from these two teams. Jags are going to be sellers. They already moved off their left tackle Robinson. We'll see going forward what happens with Jacksonville as well. It's interesting. So I don't know. I wouldn't be selling if I were Jacksonville necessarily. I'm not saying their division's up for grabs or anything like that, but I think that would be the one team leading their division in the AFC that I think could be caught would be Houston, because Houston has flaws. But they seem intent on stopping and kind of resetting. Doug Peterson is just a dead man walking. I expect him to be gone at some stage. Trevor Lawrence is interesting. He had a really bad start to the year, but it's been playing better, much better recently and continuing to go. Brian Thomas obviously continues to look good, though he kind of hurt himself last week. Whether he's healthy next week, I'm not sure. But interesting team. We'll see. As for Green Bay, with Jordan Love, it's still a very good football team. Defense needs help, though. Colts at Texans. Texans win this one 23-20. These teams play the same game every week. It feels like every time they play, it's the same game. Mixon runs for 100. Jonathan Taylor runs for 100. Texans do just enough on offense. The early down offense for Houston is still really bad. Play calling continues to be really bad. It's not that they're just running up the middle every time because Mixon's having a really good year. There's just no creativity anywhere, and there are too many times where they're in like 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 11, and Stroud has to bail them out. And Stroud is probably 3rd or 4th in the NFL right now in terms of just creating on his own. I mean, how often on 3rd and 10 is Stroud leaving the pocket and creating a play? Seems to happen like twice a drive, it feels like. And he's so good at that stuff that it kind of masks some of this kind of weird offensive stuff with Houston. I know they're missing players. They have Tank Dell on IR, and Stephon Diggs left this game with a torn ACL. He'll be out for the year, but that shouldn't... I mean, there's still some talent here at wide receiver. Interior, the offensive line's not very good. It's actually playing worse than last year, which is crazy because last year was just a bunch of misfits in there. So they need to fix that. I think there are too many flaws with Houston right now for them to make a Super Bowl run. Don't love Slowick. Don't love the early play calling. Just injuries are kind of weird. Indianapolis, on the other hand, interesting. Anthony Richardson got benched after this game here. He started 2 for 15. I know the tape didn't say 12 for 33 or whatever it said, and I know there were some drops and stuff like that, but he's still not playing very well. He had that weird thing where he went out for a play because he was tired, which is strange. And it seems like, to me, there's something else in there other than just his play. Whether Steichen's told he needs to push for the playoffs or whatever the issue is. Number one, they don't seem to be wanting to wait for Anthony Richardson. Two, I don't even know if Anthony Richardson can make these jumps. He's regressed in some spaces. The accuracy is not getting better. And obviously he pulls off some of those crazy plays and things like that, but that's not enough to be quarterback down to down in the NFL. They're also throwing a ton down the field. Now, I don't know if that's a Richardson thing, the way he processes the game or whatever, or if it's a play call thing. Either way, that's not sustainable. They're just constantly throwing it down the field. So I think it's a whole mix of variety of different things. Either way, it wasn't working for me. I'm not an Anthony Richardson guy. I wasn't coming into the draft. I'm not so sure that he ends up turning into anybody. I know people like that Josh Allen comparison, but Josh Allen is a unicorn. Players don't get more accurate very often coming in from college into the NFL. It's not something that happens a lot. So Josh Allen's kind of that unicorn, so I hate that comparison. So we'll see. Going forward, it's going to be the Joe Flacco show. I personally believe they're more likely to win games with Joe Flacco. But, we'll see going forward. Offensive line wasn't very good today, but that seems more like a game thing instead of like just a overall unit kind of thing. Defense is okay, nothing great, still really nothing at corner. So didn't learn a ton from this game, but a lot of things came out of this game, which is interesting. Not New Orleans at the Chargers, 26-8, Charger victory. Not much to talk about in this game. This is a very typical game. Knowing these two, Chargers moved the ball okay. Herbert looked good. New Orleans defense is not very good, and they should have moved the ball all right, and they did. Played the standard. As for the other way around, New Orleans, last couple of games with Rattler, scored no points. Did it today. Scored no points, really. 8. He got benched at some stage. Rattler isn't it, and whether he grows into that is a different story, but he's just not it right now. Hayner came in, didn't play better. So they're kind of just waiting for Derek Carr to come back. And you could play this game 100 times, and this is probably the median score. It's a very basic game. Not much to talk about here. I think the Chargers are a touch overrated in the market. If you want to talk about the betting market, they're kind of power ranked around 11. I don't think they're that good. I don't think the defense is that good either. I think they've played a lot of kind of easier competition so far. And I expect that to kind of regress just a touch. Offense is okay. I would like to see the offense. I don't know. I think the offense is more likely to stay steady than the defense. I think the offense has a good run game. They control the clock. You got an elite quarterback or a top 10-ish kind of quarterback who can move the ball if he needs to. So, yeah, variety of different things in that nature. But, again, not much to learn from this game at all. Buffalo at Seattle. Buffalo win this game going away 31-10. This was dominant front to back. There was that weird little fumble. I think it was Josh Allen who dropped the ball and it went for a first down and one of his guys picked it up. And outside of that play, it was all Buffalo. They moved the ball easy. Outgained Seattle by like 200 yards. I didn't learn much from this game. I've been talking about Seattle this way for a while. I'm not in love with Geno. I don't think he's a top 15 kind of guy. I'm not in love with the offense, and they're missing DK, and, Smith and Jigba's okay. He's not really taking that step. Lockett is close to washed, it feels like. Kenneth Walker is kind of boom or bust. So when you're going up against a decent defense, this is kind of what you end up without DK. And then defensively, it's just a mess right now. And there's some line injuries and injuries here and there, but the corners have taken a step back. Witherspoon and Woolen both. And he only had one catch for 3 yards today, Cooper, but the addition of Amari Cooper does a lot for the offense in just that they have an alpha-ish kind of receiver now, and just moving Shakir to the slot all the time and moving Coleman down to the twos, and he's getting, marked by twos and slot guys and moving them around and stuff. Just getting Cooper marked by one corners does a lot because they can run the ball. Josh Allen can run the ball. Josh Allen can certainly throw the ball. So it does a lot to the offense to just kind of get an alpha type of receiver in there, and kind of just shuffle around where teams have to send their 1, 2s, and 3s at corner, depending on who they go to. So it's interesting, but not a ton to learn in this game as well. A variety of these games, you didn't learn a ton, really. Carolina at Denver. Denver win this game 28-14. Another one, you don't learn much. Denver kind of felt like they sleepwalked through this game, even though they were down early. Offense moved fine. Really bad defense here at Carolina. Nix continues to be himself. Hopefully he can kind of get some of these wide open misses out of the way, or, he kind of, this is more like, I guess, QB eval, but like, he kind of makes throws off. He's just never set when he makes a lot of throws, and he misses a lot of weird throws like that. He can certainly run. He can certainly do enough, but man, you have to wonder if a really good quarterback were here in Denver who could hit wide open guys all the time, because they're wide open guys nonstop in this Denver scheme, and Nix misses a decent amount of them. So I think there's a ceiling with Denver still. Defense was okay. Let up that drive early to Bryce Young, and then that was it. And then that last drive. So I think they scored on the first drive and the last drive, after the turnover on the first drive. And, they woke up after the first drive, did what they needed to do, didn't let up any points until garbage time. The game was over. So Carolina, Bryce Young aren't it. There's nothing at Carolina. They just sold Deontay Johnson to Baltimore. There is, they're probably going to sell some more. This is just a horrific Carolina football team. And a Denver team, I think, is a little bit overrated, but did what they had to today. Kansas City at Las Vegas. They win this game 27-20. This is a pretty typical Kansas City game. They kind of sleepwalk through the first half. And then in the third quarter, the defense steps up. Offense scores the touchdowns it needs to. And that was it. It was, 13-10 Las Vegas, mid-second quarter, it felt like. And then it was 27-13 before the last drive of the game for Las Vegas, where they scored that touchdown with 2 minutes to go. So this is very typical stuff. Las Vegas continue to be a team that's so weirdly coached. Again, that weird one where they went for it on fourth down. They didn't need to. That would have made it 17-16, it felt like. Was a weird decision. They continue to make weird decisions, weird personnel decisions. Minshew's not great. Aiden O'Connell's certainly not good, even though he's hurt. They're going to need a quarterback next year. Bowers looks good. Continues to look good. It's a really good player. He's like their best player, it feels like, on offense. But everything else isn't great. Defense isn't great. Kansas City, interesting. But again, this has been Kansas City all year. They're 7-0. Not much more to say about Kansas City. It feels like they're going to sleepwalk their way to they can sleepwalk their way to 17-0 the way the schedule's set up. This is an interesting one. Chicago at Washington. This one finishes Washington 18, Chicago 15 on a Hail Mary on the last play of the game. Weird game. Washington dominated the first three quarters here, moved the ball decently well. They just couldn't get it into the end zone, which, Washington was due for some regression. They're due for some fourth down regression. They're due for some, red zone regression, which kind of came a little bit today. Chicago didn't do much on offense, and then Swift broke that run. And then they drove really late and thought they won the game by going up 15-12 with 27 seconds left. And then you get bad coaching. I mean, Chicago also had that, before we get to the end of the game, bad coaching. They also had that offensive lineman thing, tried to run the ball in there to take the lead earlier in the fourth quarter. What are you thinking? I have no idea. He fumbles it. But Washington, I don't know, in that fourth quarter really couldn't move the ball, though. Interesting. To say the least. I think this Washington offense has been overrated most of the year, and they play good defenses and kind of put up these performances where things just are just a little bit glitchy, and that's bound to happen. You have a rookie quarterback and everything like that, and new players in general. Chicago, as we said, they moved the ball in the fourth quarter pretty comfortably, and that's kind of where things kind of pop up for me. I don't believe too much in this Washington defense, number one. Number two, For most of the game, they really didn't move a ton, and that's my worry with Caleb Williams going forward. Their schedule is really difficult going forward. They have all of their division games still to play. And he kind of showed back up as, that player that was there through weeks 1 through 4 a little bit there, missed, a throw here and there, just struggled to move the offense in general. So we'll see going forward. Obviously they win on a Hail Mary. I thought they deserved to win the game in general. Winning on the Hail Mary is just a funny way to do it. But yeah, I think both of these teams are just going to come back down to earth just a little bit going forward. Dallas at San Francisco. San Francisco win this game 30-24. It really wasn't that close, but San Francisco continued to be a team that don't know how to close games at all. And I have no idea what that's all about. I really don't, but this Dallas defense is so bad that San Francisco in the end didn't need a ton of it. Offense continues to be perplexing. They can't run the football. Dallas, that is, can't run the football. Dak has 1 or 2 just awful picks a game, it feels like right now. And they didn't get the ball moving until late in the game, it felt like. And as we said with San Francisco, they were moving the ball at will. They continue to move the ball at will. San Francisco, if they could close games, would be running away in this division and kind of just be talked about as probably one of the better teams in the league. They'd be top 2 or 3 probably. But again, they can't close games, and they led this game 30-17 late, and Dallas had the ball back with a chance to win that football game. So they're going to have to figure that out, but that's been an issue they've had all year. Mason went out hurt like halfway through, came back for a snap, I think, and then you didn't see him the rest of the game, but the run scheme is so good. Guerrero went nuts. They can move the ball passing. Kittle's obviously still very good. And then we had, who else missed today? Debo looked all right. Excuse me. So it's it's not exactly plug and play, but you see some games where it feels like it's plug and play, and this kind of felt like it when you're playing a bad Dallas D. So as I said, I still expect San Francisco to win this division. Dallas, we'll see. When the edge rushers are back, we'll see if the defense takes a step. It needs to, if Dallas are going to make a playoff push, but we'll see going forward. And then our final game here, Giants at the Steelers. Steelers win this one 26-18. This was really tight early, 9-9, before Pittsburgh took a punt return to the end zone. Both teams were moving the ball. They just couldn't get it into the end zone. The first 6 drives or so were so smooth for everybody until it got to the red zone, and then nobody could get it into the end zone. But you see the differences with the Pitt offense when Russell Wilson's in there, not just because he's a better thrower of the football, which he is, but because he can throw the football, it makes defenses kind of not pack the box and wait for, runs with Harris, options and stuff. It gives Harris more room. It gives the wide receivers more one-on-ones. It gives everybody a little bit more space going forward, and Wilson can do enough passing the ball. I still think it's a little bit over the top right now. I expect it to come down a little bit, but, do well enough. And the defense, I think, slightly overrated. Giants moved the ball pretty well for a long time. Tracy had a really good game. I think he's their running back going forward. He's better than Singletary for sure. Whether he's the one next year, I'm not sure, but for now, why not? He's still learning the position, though, so we'll see. Daniel Jones was Daniel Jones, I guess, today. Excuse me. And, not much to learn about the Giants. Pittsburgh, 6-2, and the schedule is a little bit lighter in the back half than it originally looked at the front end. So this team may win 10, 11 games. Pittsburgh are the same team every year. They're going to win their way through enough times, not look good doing it, get to the playoffs and get trounced. It is just what Pittsburgh are and what Pittsburgh will continue to be. And I think that's what they are this year. Giants, on the other hand, they're well coached enough that they're going to steal a game here and there. So they're probably a little bit, I don't want to say better than some of these other bad teams, but I think they're more likely to steal some wins than some of these other bad teams. So interesting, but, crazy week. Kind of learned a lot this week, even though some of these games were, kind of blowout-y. Detroit, You know, Kansas City, you didn't learn anything. Denver, Carolina, Buffalo, Seattle, Las Vegas, Dallas, San Francisco, New Orleans, Chargers. You didn't learn anything from those games, but you learned quite a bit, and there were some really good games this week from the other ones. So hopefully next week we have some more to talk about. But yeah, that's all we got.